Please join me in a moment of prayer. Holy Spirit, fill this place with your presence. Be with me as I speak and with your people so they hear your word. Amen. So we have the famous Beatitudes. They're in Luke's gospel as well as Matthew. It's a little bit different in Matthew than Luke, but that's okay. If any of you read my article about the 12 days of Christmas, you might have picked up that I talked about the 9 Beatitudes. I forgot what 9 is. What is it, 9 Lords of Leaping or something like that? And how people go, oh, that's about the Beatitudes. Okay, where did they get 9 from? Because if you read Matthew, it's not 9. If you read Luke, it's not 9. I don't know where they get 9 from. But at any rate, the Beatitudes. Blessed are you if you're poor. Blessed are you if you're hungry. Blessed are you if you're mourning. Why in the world would Jesus say that? Because, there's been a... Why would Jesus say that? Well, we got to understand some context, first of all. We go back to Jesus' day. Jesus' religion, as a matter of fact, Judaism. There's another discussion that we have in Bible discussion in Sunday school that Jesus did not start Christianity. Jesus did not come here to start a new religion. Jesus came here to reform his own religion. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? So Jesus was a Jew, and the Jewish faith taught that if you were poor or if you were unhealthy, if you were born with some sort of physical ailment, it was because either you or your parents had sinned. The reason bad things happened to you is because you misbehaved. You got what you deserved, so to speak. That's what they were taught. We might recall the story of Jesus healing the blind man. And people asked about the blind man, was it him that sinned or was it his parents that sinned, causing him to be born blind? That was the teaching. The reason you're poor or unhealthy or any of those other calamities is because you misbehaved or your parents did. And that's what you get. Consequently, if you were wealthy and healthy and wise and all of that, it was because God found favor in you and was blessing you. That's what Jesus' religion taught. Matter of fact, that's what a lot of Christians, or it's what some Christians teach as well. I am so blessed, some of us will say. God has looked favorably on me because of how good I am. Many religions teach that. But Jesus said no. Jesus came to reform that kind of thinking, saying, no, that's not the way it works. You're not poor because you or your family did something wrong, so you're being punished. And consequently, you wealthy people are not wealthy because of how good you are. It's just the way things work. Jesus turned it all upside down. Not only did he say that's not the way it works, what you have been teaching one another, but I want to turn it upside down and say, I, as God, favor the poor, the destitute, and the sick, and the lonely, and the outcast. Jesus says, I came for those people that society rejects. Might find it interesting that the word translated as poor in Luke's gospel, the Greek word translated as poor is something that we would say is pooey. In English, it's Etoey, pooey. Blessed are the people that society looks down on. Blessed are those that you want nothing to do with. Blessed are the people you can't stand to be around. Jesus says they're blessed. Jesus says they're favored. Those people you don't want to have anything to do with are the ones Jesus favored. About that moment. People you want nothing to do with are the ones favored. What does that look like in days? Who are the ptuid people? Who are the people we spit out of our mouths? Who are the people we speak ill of? Who are the people we'd rather just not be hanging out with? They're the ones favored by God. And then Jesus turns to the rich and the healthy and the wise and the favored ones, the ones that you like to be with. Jesus turns to them and says, whoa. I like to think that they misspelled the word woe, because the Greek word that's translated as woe does not mean warning. It means something like, whoa, W-H-O-A. Or yikes. Yikes to you who are wealthy. Because that is your consolation. In one of the things that I've read not too recently, a man or a person was talking about a friend of his who drove this very expensive sports car. And he claimed that this sports car could feed and house two families for a full year on the price that he paid for the sports car. And on the bumper of the sports car, he had a sign that said, "He who dies with the most toys wins." He who dies with the most toys wins. This commentator said that really what the bumper sticker would say is, he who dies with the most toys is the biggest fool. There's joy in those toys. Kind of like with Ben and Drew, there was joy in the bubble makers. Don't you wish you came up? I never said there's an age limit. But the joy stops when you're done playing. The joy stops with that sports car when it gets in an accident, or it starts to rust, or it gets so old that you've got to put a lot of money into it to maintain it. The joy stops. But Jesus is talking about a transcendent joy. And that's what that blessed means. A transcendent. A joy that goes beyond what you ordinarily imagine joy. So Jesus is talking to the wealthy. He says, whoa, Nellie, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Jesus is talking to the healthy and saying, whoa, Nellie, you're putting way too much emphasis in your situation. Jesus is saying to the comfortable, whoa, Nellie, it's not all about you. Yikes, if you think that's wow. Instead, you'll find transcendent joy when you look beyond yourself. So I offered these ideas. If you're healthy, instead of focusing on how well you are doing, perhaps you could donate blood. If you are healthy, there's nothing wrong with you. You give thanks to God. But how about a little transcendent joy in donating blood so others can live? Only a pinprick. Well, more than a pinprick, let's be honest here. It hurts. But there's joy beyond that. I'm 1 unit away from 7 gallons having been donated. That feels really good. 1 unit away from 7 gallons. I'm not done yet. Lord willing, I remain healthy enough to continue donating. There's joy in that donation because I know people will live because of what I have done. Christ invites you into that as well. What about if you're financially comfortable? This past Advent season, I asked you, or I challenged you rather, to add up how much you spent for Christmas gifts. And I asked you to compare that which you spent on giving gifts to people who could afford to give you gifts back, which frankly is most all of us, or that which you spent on gifts to people who can't afford to return. I asked you to compare those two, and I challenged you that the gifts you gave to people who cannot afford to give back would be more than what you spent on family and friends. If you've done that, because your bills have now come due, it's February, you've received those charge card bills, go through and add it up and see how much did you spend on family and friends, people who could afford to give back. How much did you spend on those who can't? There's transcendent joy over here. In giving a gift to somebody who cannot afford, did not expect a gift from you, there's transcendent joy. It may be too late for this year or this past Christmas, but it's not too late for 2022. Perhaps in birthday gifts, Valentine's gifts. Now, I'm not saying don't give to your spouse, but perhaps you can give things to people who can't afford to give you back. There's transcendent joy in there. What about if you're happy and comfortable living in these United States? With silent lips, she cries, "Give me you're tired, you're poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed, to me." When did we as a country get away from that? Are we so fat and happy in our comfortable lifestyle we do not see those tired and poor and huddled masses, the people that are homeless, the tempest-tossed? Perhaps what Jesus is saying is, woe there, Nellie. As long as we're talking about that, let's say you're a Democrat. Are you able to say positive things about Donald Trump, our former president, and those other Republicans that are in power in Washington? Can you find positive things to say about them? You know where I'm going next, right? Can you Republicans say positive things about our current president and the other Democrats that are in power in Washington? Do you lift them all up in prayer? Or do you criticize? There's transcendent joy in lifting up, in speaking good of people. Now, I'll grant you, sometimes you got to look pretty hard to find the good. But there's good. There's transcendent joy. So the next time you're thinking of complaining about something that's going on, think about Jesus going, whoa, Nellie. What are you called to look at? Who are you called to treat in a different way? What race or nationality or gender are you called to love in a transcendent way? One of the things that I hear quite often, of course, not from anybody here, but from other people I speak with, is when they're telling a story about a person, they will say, well, that black woman, and finish the story. And I'll say, well, what does black or woman got to do with the story? Well, I want to be able to identify who the person, I want you to be able to identify who the person is. I go, I don't know the person, so again, what does black or woman have to do with your story? If it was a white person, would you say, oh, the white person? Well, no, they say. Well, then why do you say black? If the person is of a different gender orientation, I hear that too, and I ask, what has that got to do with anything? Are those the people we're going, and is that why we speak of them that way? More than likely. Jesus calls us to back our train up a little bit, or to hold our horses a little bit. Whoa, he says. Get out of yourself. Start thinking and caring for others, all others. The movie The Shack has a line that I repeat often. I'm sorry if you've heard it too many times, but you'll continue to hear it, because I think it's important. God is talking to the main character in the story and keeps referring to different people. He always refers to them by name, which I think is interesting. God never says, well, the black woman or the Asian man or anything else. He refers to them by name. And we'll say, well, Billy Bob over there, I'm particularly fond of him. Or Susie Jane over here, I'm particularly fond of her. And eventually the character says, you keep saying you're particularly fond of everybody you speak about. And God goes, yeah. Huh? So? I'm particularly fond of you too. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's whoa our horses. Let's use names, not descriptors. Let's remember what the Statue of Liberty has inscribed on it in the way we think about others. Let's be particularly fond of those people in Washington that we speak about. Let's be particularly fond of everybody we encounter. That's what Jesus is telling us to do. Woe to you who are wealthy, poor, and healthy, and living well. Oh, stop what you're doing. Lord God, what you ask us to do is difficult. It's so easy for us to get wrapped up in our own lives and what's going on with us that we forget that others need your love and our love too. Help us, Lord, to hold our horses long enough to be particularly fond of those whom we engage. We ask this in your Son's precious name, the man, the Lord, the God who taught us to love as we were loved. Jesus Christ.